Ah yes, another retro-styled first-person shooter. These are becoming a dime a dozen these days, but for the most part, they are well-made throwbacks to the era of Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem 3D, and the sort. Sure, there's usually some sort of gimmick to differentiate one from another, but when you get down to it, you sit down to some quick, frantic action with a storyline present only to give you a reason to blast evil. Prodeus doesn't really break from the mold in that aspect. You are thrown into a game in which you learn that there are two main forces, the Chaos and the Prodeus. They are both battling each other for some reason, and then you enter the fray, slaying anything that breathes, because why not? There is some sort of plot revolving around the Prodeus attempting to take over the galaxy using portals or some nonsense, but I personally didn't care nor pay attention to the story. If you do, you are given brief snippets when you choose your stage from the map, almost giving you the reason why you are entering that location. And that's right, there is a world map at play here. Although it's primarily linear in nature, there are a small handful of times where you can alter your path, changing what order you battle levels in. But when you enter the level, something about Prodeus stands out. Probably the pixelated look of everything. And this is where we come to Prodeus' gimmick, the visual theme of the game. It's made to look like an early 3D shooter that is on either PC or maybe PlayStation. The options say it runs in 320p, which I can believe. The enemies and items are sprites, not your typical 3D models, and so they rotate jankily. Particle effects are clearly square in shape, not rounded. If you don't like this look, you can opt to change the resolution to a modern scale and allow normal enemy models, but where's the fun in that? The next thing that popped out to me was the amount of blood in this game. For a game that aims for a retro style, they have an insane amount of the red stuff spurting from everything. Don't get me wrong, this is far from a complaint. I honestly get a bit giddy playing Prodeus and literally painting the levels red with my opponent's life force. As I read that back, that sounds pretty psychotic. But hell, what can I say? I like blood in video games. But anyway, yeah. Corpses splatter blood everywhere, especially if you pump a few extra rounds into the body when it falls. You get blood on the walls, the floor, the ceiling, your weapon, your visor, literally everywhere. Strangely, there is one advantage to this. Being that the maps are designed almost like Doom maps in which there are plenty of corridors, keys to find, and so on, you can use this gore to determine where you've been and where you haven't. Sure, there is a map available by hitting circle, but following blood trails is just so much easier and somehow more satisfying. Although blood trails won't help you find many of the secrets found in Prodeus. Like most FPS games in this style, hidden areas lead to armor, weapons, ammo, health, and chunks of ore. Those ore pieces are critical, as they allow you to purchase items from the shop you can find on the world map. And items here are not cheap in the least. At first, you only have access to a plasma rifle and super shotgun, but after this, you then get to buy a dash boost and double jump, then a bandolier and other high-powered weapons. The thing is, these extra items are locked behind what the game calls a tier system, although it's not explained in the game. Basically, you have to buy the lower items before the better stuff is available. You can't just save 25 ore to buy the bandolier and get it quickly. No. You have to save up a total of 30 for the first two weapons, then 20 each for the double jump and dash. I can understand why the overpowered weapons are locked up, but I feel like the non-weapon powers should be available from the beginning. I would have killed for a higher ammo capacity. Oh right, I kinda was. And yes, there is a lot of killing, even if it wasn't apparent by the absolute amount of blood located in the game. Enemies will hunt you down in packs, and just like in games like Doom, they will often teleport in when you get to certain rooms. I will say that there isn't a huge variety of enemies though. You have normal humanoid thugs, creatures that could pass as imps from Doom, octobrain-like creatures from Duke Nukem 3D, and werewolf-looking things that kinda remind me of something that could have been pulled from Quake. There are also snipers, explosive kamikaze flying creatures, and annoying bug-like monsters that, again, might have called the Half-Life world home. And these are all just the Chaos life forms. The Prodeus guys... Oh wait, they're essentially the same enemies, just blue and more powerful. Yeah, sadly, the Prodeus enemies aren't really different than the Chaos ones. Sure, there are a few foes that belong only to Chaos or Prodeus, but these guys are mostly mini-bosses. It would have been nice to see more differentiating races than just a color and power change. Speaking of mini-bosses, they can be frustrating to tackle. The first one you run into is a guy with a minigun, which can tear you apart just as easily as you can shred others with your own. Another is a humanoid that flings plasma charges or something at you incredibly quickly, and they hurt. There are others too, and sometimes their attacks feel like they're impossible to avoid. Thankfully, there is no real penalty for death in Prodeus. You simply respawn at a checkpoint node, with all progress saved, including enemies killed. Of course, this makes the game stupidly easy, so if you really want to give yourself a challenge, allow yourself to restart the stage upon death when the option pops up. Overall though, Prodeus isn't a terribly difficult game, at least not until you get to the Prodeus stages. Once you've reached the first portal on the world map, you are sent to the Prodeus world, where the enemies are primarily, you guessed it, Prodeus types. You'll be swapping weapons frequently due to running out of ammo in your currently held one, but there are ammo pads everywhere that endlessly replenish your supply. But it's here where I realize that there's not really a huge variety when it comes to level themes. The stages are primarily sci-fi inspired space stations or industrial zones. Sure, you might get an outside area here and there, but for the most part, once you've played the game for about an hour or two, you got the visual theme of the levels down pat. Man, I can't believe I haven't talked about the weapons yet. Prodeus features possibly one of the most satisfying arsenals I've ever seen in a first-person shooter. Even your starting pistol has a noticeable heft to it, alternating between single and burst fire. The basic shotgun has a wonderful kick to it. The Shredder SMGs are dual-fired and stay true to their name. The rocket launcher can kill most creatures in one blast. The Chaos Rifle doubles as a sniper rifle, well, without a true scope. The Plasma Rifle seems to take down the Prodeus forces easily, and the minigun? Oh man, this minigun is so much fun to use. Hold down R2 and just let bullets and blood fly. Sure, it may not be the most powerful or terribly accurate weapon available, but who cares when it's so much fun to use? Once you get it, there's not really a point in using the shredders or pistol. The music helps set the tone of combat perfectly in Prodeus. It's your normal atmospheric stuff when lumbering through the stage with nothing going on, but as soon as the threat appears, you know the adrenaline pumping metal is gonna start up. This is one of those games where you want to hook up a stereo system and turn it up to 11. Kinda what I did, since I just bought a new stereo recently. This is a great game to test the speaker quality, and it passed. Prodeus has a heavy emphasis on community content. Right on the main menu, you are given a hub to download other players' campaigns and play them, almost like extra fan-made episodes. I personally haven't tried it out yet, but I'm curious to see what others have been able to create. Oddly enough, when completing any stage, you also get to rate it on a scale of bad, good, or okay. I can understand rating community maps, but the built-in game stuff? Seems a bit weird, but it's not really that big of a deal. Prodeus isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn close. Awesome weapons, solid combat, fun stages, a welcoming community content page. It's just a shame that the enemy and level theme variety isn't quite up to par. Even so, don't let that discourage you from playing this incredibly violent shooter. You can clear it in probably 6 to 8 hours or so it's a great weekend killer. And when you get done with that, if you want more, there's the fan-based stuff. Check out Prodeus if you are into retro-styled shooters. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.